Have you ever watched someone, a musician, an athlete, and just thought to yourself, wow, they are a natural? Well, get ready, because we're about to dive into Daniel Coyle's The Talent Code, an idea that completely flips that way of thinking on its head.
It's a question we've all wondered about, right? Is amazing skill just a roll of the genetic dice, something you're either born with or you're not? Most of us grew up believing that talent is this kind of magical, innate thing. But what if that's not really how it works at all?
So here's the big secret. Talent isn't something you're given. It's something you grow. It's something you build from scratch, piece by piece. It's a process, not some special prize you get at birth.
Now, to really see what this looks like in the real world, let me tell you a story. It's about a young musician who, well, let's just say nobody thought she had a future in music.
Okay, so this is Clarissa. When she first picked up a clarinet, pretty much everyone, her teachers, her parents, even music psychologists, said the same thing. Music just wasn't for her. She had no rhythm, no musical ear. She was the textbook definition of someone who just didn't have it. But then, something absolutely wild happened. Someone recorded her practicing, and in just 6 minutes, that's right, 6 minutes, she made the kind of progress that would normally take a month. How on earth is that possible? It wasn't magic. It was a very specific, super focused way of practicing that was literally rewiring her brain. And this is our first big clue to cracking the talent code.
And that leads us straight into the first and maybe the most crucial element of the talent code, something called deep practice. This is the engine that actually builds skill. And trust me, it's probably nothing like the way you were taught to practice.
So, what exactly is deep practice? Well, it is not about just repeating something over and over for hours. It's about getting into this zone of intense, focused effort where you're right on the very edge of what you can do. You have to slow down, you hunt for mistakes, you feel that struggle, and then you correct them. It's right there, in that struggle, that the real magic happens.
Here's a perfect way to think about it. You're on an airplane, and the flight attendant shows you how to use the life jacket. You watch, you nod, you think, yep, got it. But if there was a real emergency, could you do it? Probably not, right? That's passive learning. Deep practice is actually grabbing that life jacket, struggling with the straps, and figuring it out yourself. That's when the learning sticks. A huge part of this is a technique called chunking. And it's pretty simple, really. First, you just watch the whole skill. Get a feel for it. Then, you break it down into the smallest possible pieces, or chunks. And finally, and this is key, you slow everything way down. You master each tiny chunk one at a time before you even think about putting them all back together. It's slow, it's deliberate, and it works like a charm.
So what is actually happening inside our brains when we're doing all this? Well, according to neurologist Dr. George Bartzokis, it all comes down to a substance called myelin. Myelin is the real biological secret behind talent. It's skill made real.
I want you to think of your brain's circuits like bare electrical wires. Every time you practice a move or a thought, every time you fire that circuit, your brain wraps a tiny layer of myelin around it. This myelin works like insulation, making the signal travel faster and more accurately. The more deep practice you do, the thicker that insulation gets, turning a slow, clumsy effort into a fast, effortless skill. You are literally building a superhighway for your talent. Okay, so we've established that deep practice is the engine that builds skill. But every engine needs fuel, right? What gets you to even start that engine? Well, that brings us to our second element, ignition. This is the passion, the drive, the powerful motivation that makes you want to do all that hard work.
The relationship here is super simple, but it's absolutely critical. You could have the world's most powerful engine, but without any fuel, it's just a chunk of metal. Deep practice is your engine. Ignition is the fuel. It's that emotional energy that gets you out of bed in the morning and keeps you pushing forward.
Let me give you a perfect example of ignition in action. Let's talk about Roger Bannister. For decades, everyone, and I mean everyone, doctors, scientists, believed that running a mile in under 4 minutes was physically impossible for a human being. It was a hard wall. And then, one day in 1954, Roger Bannister went out and did it.
Now here's the crazy part. What happened next? Just a few weeks later, another runner broke his record. Within a few years, 17 other runners had also broken the 4-minute barrier. Did humans suddenly get faster? Of course not. What changed was the belief in what was possible. Bannister's run was a massive trigger, a spark that ignited a new sense of possibility for an entire generation of runners. That, right there, is ignition.
All right, so we have the engine of deep practice, and we have the fuel of ignition.
There's one final piece to this puzzle: the guide, the person who can show you the roadmap. And this is our third element: master coaching.
A master coach, a true talent whisperer, isn't just smart. They have these 4 special qualities. They have deep, organized knowledge, the metrics. They're incredibly perceptive. They can just feel what a student needs. They have what Coyle calls the GPS reflex. They give short, clear, direct commands. And finally, they deliver feedback with theatrical honesty. It's sincere, it's blunt, and you absolutely cannot ignore it.
A legendary cello teacher named Hans Jensen was brilliant at this. He had a student who was technically perfect but playing with zero feeling. Jensen didn't give him a long lecture. He just said 2 things. Don't overthink, just play. It was a short, sharp GPS instruction that unlocked everything for the student. That's the incredible power of a great coach.
So let's bring it all home. Deep practice, ignition, and master coaching. These aren't just cool concepts, they are a real practical blueprint that you can use to build pretty much any skill you can imagine.
So here's your blueprint. First, commit to deep practice. Get into that zone where you're struggling and growing. Second, find your ignition. What gets you fired up? What makes you believe you can do it? Find that fuel and protect it. And third, find a master coach. Look for a mentor who can give you that clear, honest feedback you need to get better.
And that's really the most powerful lesson here. Greatness isn't some destiny for a select few. It's a choice. It's a path that is open to absolutely anyone who is willing to put in the work, build that myelin, and keep their fire burning.
So, I'm going to leave you with this one question to think about. Now that you have the code, now that you have the blueprint for building greatness from the ground up, what talent are you going to choose to build?